Welcome back to the Disorderly Sports Report podcast. New episode, new format. We're going to start with the top story, get into some quick hits. I'll give you my Degenerate Lock of the Week, hopefully make you guys some money, and then we'll finish this thing off with an Outside the Bubble weekly topic, because sometimes you need a distraction from your distractions. We'll bounce outside of sports, get into some other things, other topics, and that'll be the format moving forward. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Kicking things off with our top story, the home stretch of the NFL regular season. What does the playoff picture look like as we head into December? Let's get into it. This is the Disorderly Sports Report podcast, episode 9. Let's go.
Bum, 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 bum.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back. We've been on a brief hiatus, at least I have. I think the last Sports Report podcast was in October, so it's been, essentially a month since we released an episode of the Disorderly Sports Report. The wheels obviously still turning at thedisorderly.com. David St. Martin busting stuff out every single day, mostly entertainment news, but bouncing around sports and entertainment. And part of the difficulty with doing this as a side hustle, basically, is that it's tough to find the time. I mean, you can imagine you have a regular job, you have a life, you have to sort of find time to pencil in these podcasts. And part of the issue, at least for me, was relying on a guest. So for those that don't know, I guess, I used to be the host of MMA Mad, did that for about 5 years, the MMA Mad podcast, and you kind of build up this Rolodex of interviews, but obviously, that being an MMA show, all the guests were MMA fighters, MMA coaches, whatever. This is supposed to be more of a broad sports show. So could I book an MMA guest every single week? Sure. Does that make a lot of sense for the format of this show? I don't think so. So I needed to come up with a way to do this more consistently, more reliably, and booking a guest each and every week just added a huge sort of obstacle in putting this out every single week. So this is the new format. We're still going to work in guests when we can, when it makes sense to. One of my favorite things about doing this podcast, especially with it not being my main source of income, one of my favorite things is to basically get to talk to all these people that I respect and admire and really want to have a conversation with, ask questions to. So the guest platform is still there, and we'll definitely, integrate that as the show goes. But there's probably going to be a lot more of these solo shows. So to keep it interesting, to keep it so it's not just me blabbering, I added in a little structure. We're going to go into a top story. Every single week, I'm going to pick one story, kind of dive deeper into that. That's going to be the role there. Then I'm going to go into some quick hits, really brief points, just kind of talk about the world of sports, what's going on, hit on, 3-4 topics, and really move past that. The third segment is going to be my Degenerate Lock of the Week. So each week I'm going to give you one pick, whatever I think is a good pick, whether it's a football game, maybe a fight. Obviously, as I explained before, MMA is kind of my forte, but I do watch a ton of football. Big baseball guy, obviously not relevant right now, but for anyone who followed my weekly column at The Disorderly, I love baseball as well, so we'll get into that. When that comes back around, it'll be here before you know it, actually. Basketball, whatever. I'm going to get into whatever I think is a good pick, an exciting game to watch, that sort of thing. And then finally, Outside the Bubble. For longtime listeners of the MMA Mad podcast, Outside the Bubble is the segment we did with my friend Monica, who knows nothing about MMA. She'd kind of make random picks. So I'm kind of flipping the name on that. She'll definitely be on the show. She's been on the Disorderly podcast before. We'll keep working her in when it makes sense to. But Outside the Bubble is now going to be a weekly segment where we get into things outside of the world of sports. So I've done TV podcasts. I'm really into TV and movies. I'm into music, all sorts of things. Whatever I want to talk about, whatever doesn't apply to a sports podcast, but I want to work in there, I'll throw it at the end. So if for some reason you're a hardo that only listens to sports stuff, you can shut it off. I don't know why you would do that, or even who does that. I don't know who is just into sports. I know I'm not. So this is more to kind of keep me sane, add in a fun thing for myself to talk about, just so I don't have to hammer sports every single week for the foreseeable future. So that's the format. Before we go on, please hit the subscribe button. Even if you don't listen to the podcast, it takes up no room, especially on the new iPhones and new Androids. There's so much storage, you have nothing to worry about. Just hit subscribe. It'll automatically download. It'll give us a click or a hit or whatever, and that goes a long way with really costing you guys nothing. Actually, we had a friend that went to, shout out Nate, my buddy went to a cell phone store and actually subscribed to a few podcasts on like the display phones, and that actually did help. So if you want to be a little vigilante and go do that, that would mean a lot to me too. But yeah, that's about it. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Nick Risner, NickRizner, and the show is going to be on Twitter at dis_pod, DIS_pod. I check both regularly, so if you want to send a DM there, comments, feedback, if you want to be involved in the show somehow, just reach out on either one of those platforms and I will respond in a timely manner. I hope, fingers crossed. And otherwise, just go to thedisorderly.com. Best in sports entertainment, daily updates there. This is going to be a weekly show, but that website's got constant breaking news, the latest in the sports and entertainment world, so head over there. Hell, make it your homepage. Why not? So let's go. This week's top story. November's coming to a close. December is upon us, or will be soon. And that means we are in the home stretch of the NFL regular season. People like to pretend like they know what's going to happen before the season starts. Bullshit. You have no idea what's going to happen before the season starts. That's why they play the games. But now we get a clearer picture of who could, well, first of all, who will make the playoffs, and then who could potentially make a run in the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. So we're going to dive into all that, starting with a real basic principle. First of all, I'm recording this on a Monday right before the Monday Night Football game starts, so I don't know what's going to happen in that Houston-Tennessee game. But as it stands, and by the time you're listening, this will be old, but as it stands, before that Monday game, the division leaders are the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Texans out of the AFC, and the Cowboys, Rams, Bears, and Saints out of the NFC. And for what it's worth, if the Titans beat the Texans tonight, the Texans will still be in first place. They'll have a half game on the Colts, so there won't be any shakeup as far as the division leaders go. But I'll start with the Texans because I'm an idiot, and I'm recording this before the Monday Night Football game. You're listening after the Monday Night Football game, so you already know whether they won or lost to the Tennessee Titans. But for some reason, that's where I'm going to start. I'm not sold on the Texans, win or lose tonight, or yesterday, or whatever, whenever you're listening. I just don't really buy them as a Super Bowl contending team. I just don't see it. Now, they've had a crazy turnaround. They went 0-3 to start the season. I feel like there's a lot of hype around Deshaun Watson, and people are saying that he was kind of flipped the narrative on the Texans, and the Texans were finally going to be this contender. And then you get this 0-3 start, and everyone's screaming the Texans stink. Now, while I'm not sold on them, I don't think they stink either, but let's just go through their schedule quick. They lost to the Patriots, lost to the Titans, lost to the Giants. That's how they started the year. Then they bounced back with 7 in a row against the Colts, Cowboys, Bills, Jaguars, Dolphins, Broncos, and Redskins. Tonight, of course, is that rematch with the Titans, who were also making a little bit of a run. They beat the Cowboys. Now, as a Cowboys fan, I'll say that is not the biggest accomplishment in the world, but then they slaughtered the Patriots. That's probably the most shocking game of the season. 34-10, Titans over Patriots. So the Titans have shown the capabilities to beat the best teams in football, but they're certainly not a world beater. And that goes tenfold, 100-fold for the Giants. The Giants stink. So I know it's early in the season. It's a different team. The Texans are on a hot streak right now, but losing to the Giants is a pretty unforgivable loss. I mean, only 3 wins on the season so far for the Giants. So that is, not necessarily something that tips the scales in favor of the Texans being a quote-unquote good team. I just don't see it. And the picture's much clearer after this Titans game, and I'll have a better idea in a matter of hours how good the Houston Texans are, but I don't see them going anywhere. I feel like the AFC is really between the top 3 teams, maybe 4, by the way. I can see the Chargers kind of sneaking in and making a run, but clearly the biggest teams all year out of the AFC have been the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Steelers. Now, the Steelers, in their own right, are a pretty big surprise just because with the whole Le'Veon Bell holdout and the fact that he never returned to the team. Obviously, James Conner has made a lot of waves. You still have Juju Smith-Schuster. You still have Antonio Brown. Ben Roethlisberger, although aging, is one of the best quarterbacks really in the modern era of football. So the Steelers are definitely a team to fear in a playoff game, especially because they have that veteran presence. The Chiefs are by far the hottest team in the AFC. You have Patrick Mahomes, second-year quarterback, one of the I don't even have the stats in front of me, but he's been shattering all sorts of passing records, yardage, touchdowns. The guy's a beast. People forget about the run game as well. I feel like so much has been made about Patrick Mahomes and that passing offense, so you almost forget about Kareem Hunt. Anthony Sherman at fullback doesn't really run it ever. I don't think he has a single carry on the year, but he does have some catches. Sherman, a.k.a. the sausage with hands, UConn alumni. Maybe the best UConn alumni. Got to give a little love to Byron Jones, but he's still young. Sherman's proven it. One of the best fullbacks in football. Yeah, the Chiefs, they're a problem. They're a problem. When they went head-to-head with the Patriots, it was a super close game, but they lost. When they went head-to-head with the Rams, it was a super close game, but they lost. Now, if you think that a second-year quarterback's not going to learn from those experiences and be better if he faces the Patriots in the playoffs or if he faces the Rams in the Super Bowl, a lot of people were already calling that a preview of the Super Bowl, the Rams versus Chiefs game. If you think that those experiences aren't going to make... And by the way, I use the term second-year quarterback very lightly because in a lot of ways, this is his rookie year. It's his first real year starting for the Chiefs. So they're a problem, man. They're a problem. Of course, the Patriots are always a problem. But this is the first year you can't pencil them into a Super Bowl slot. For the longest time, maybe someone knocks them out in the playoffs, but for the most part, they're going to get to the Super Bowl every single year. They're going to win the AFC East every single year. Nothing's changed there. Second place in the AFC East right now is the Miami Dolphins. They're 5-6. So there's not even a team in that division with a winning record. It's just the Patriots. No one's going to catch them. The Patriots are going to win the division. They'll probably end up with a really good record. I could see them even winning out, potentially. There are a couple of tough games on the schedule. Next week, they have the Vikings. The Steelers are coming up as well. So there are a few difficult games, but for the most part, the Patriots are going to be in very good position to not only make the playoffs, but probably have home field advantage in at least one of the games, maybe a first-round bye. And the Patriots are the Patriots. I don't care if it's an aging Tom Brady. I don't care if Gronk's not 100%. When is he ever 100%? I don't care about anything else. Bill Belichick will find a way to coach this team into a playoff winning opportunity. And I guess we'll see how they do against the Steelers. But for the most part, I think their biggest threat to them is the Steelers. Now, they already beat the Chiefs. Like I said, Mahomes is going to learn from that. The rematch, if we see one in the playoffs, the rematch between the Patriots and the Chiefs will likely look very different than the regular season matchup. Not to say the Patriots won't win again, because you bet Belichick learned a lot from playing against Patrick Mahomes as well. He'll have a different look for them in the second game. But I'm not so much worried about a second-year quarterback versus the savvy Patriots. What I'm more concerned about is the Steelers, who very well could have home field advantage against the Patriots. That changes a lot of things, too. You get the Steelers at home. The Patriots have a 500 record on the road this season. They're undefeated at home. So that changes a lot, who has home field advantage. So you're playing, even though the Patriots already locked up their division, you're really playing for every single game, every single win, because home field means a lot in this playoffs, particularly in the AFC. So gun to my head, who do I think is coming out of the AFC and going to the Super Bowl? It seems like an easy answer, but I really think it's just going to be the Patriots again. I think the Patriots just know how to play playoff football. I think they'll make it to the Super Bowl. It's not going to be easy. It might be one of the toughest AFC roads to the Super Bowl that we've ever seen in this, modern freaking dynasty that is the Patriots. But I do think they do it again. Patriots will be your AFC champions. And then in the NFC, my money's on the Saints. I think it's just got to be the Saints. Now, I know a lot has been made of the Rams. The Rams are 10-1. The Saints are also 10-1. Not to mention the fact that the Saints have won 10 in a row. Actually, I might have spoke too soon. I said that the most shocking result of the season so far was the Titans blowing out the Patriots. I stand corrected. I think the most shocking result of the season, especially seeing how things have played out since then, was that first game, Saints versus the Buccaneers. That's one of those things where it was shocking when we saw it. People were surprised to see the Buccaneers beat the Saints at home. But as these teams sort of trend in different directions, the fact that the Saints are undefeated since that game, it just makes it all the more shocking in hindsight. So that was a wild result. But I think the Saints are the best team in football. NFC, AFC, I just don't see anyone beating them. It's worth noting that they already played the Rams head-to-head and beat the Rams. So there's that. The only team to beat the Rams. The one time we saw these teams go head-to-head, the Saints were victorious. I mean, everything looks good when you're 10-1, but they're 5-1 in the Superdome, and they're undefeated away, 5-0 on the road. It's honestly a shame that we can't have those two teams play each other in the Super Bowl because, for my money, the Saints and the Rams are the two most exciting teams in football. Yeah, Andy Reid, the Chiefs, whatever. I think those are the two most exciting teams in football. Now, there's something to be said about warm weather teams winning in February, winning in the Super Bowl. It might be, bullshit. It might be some random superstition. I don't know if it really translates. Obviously, these guys play all over the country. Just because they're from LA doesn't mean that you only play on the sunny beaches of Southern California. And by the way, the Saints play in a dome, and Louisiana's pretty warm too. But I don't know. It's hard for me to see the Rams just coming and beating all these people in the heart of the winter, to get to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl's in Atlanta, so it's a non-factor. But anyway, I'm all over the place. I think the Saints do it. I think they have the veteran presence. Their defense is wildly underrated, too. We'll get to that little preview. That'll be one half of my lock of the week. But yeah, I think the Saints are the real deal. The Bears are also in it. Let's not forget about them either. That whole NFC North is very interesting. The Vikings, the Bears, we could probably see both those teams, with a wild card spot. They're both dangerous. I think, as a whole, I think the NFC is a lot more difficult to get through than the AFC this year, with the exception of the few teams I noted. But here's the thing with the Bears. Now, there's two old adages. One is that defense wins championships, right? You have a strong defense. Defense travels. Defense can change the entire flow of a game. You can have this high-powered offense, and a good defense can just completely shut them down, completely bewilder an opponent's offense. And the Bears have that going for them. They have probably, if not the best defense, no, I'm just going to say it. They have the best defense in football this year. But they also have a second-year quarterback. Now, here's a little stat for you. There have been 6 second-year quarterbacks in Super Bowl history. Not winning it, there's been 6 second-year quarterbacks to make it to a Super Bowl. The first was Dan Marino, lost. Then Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger all won. Colin Kaepernick, lost. Russell Wilson won. Would have been Carson Wentz, by the way, but obviously he got hurt, and Nick Foles ended up taking over. So Carson Wentz was on a Super Bowl championship team, but he's on the bench. Also, they stink. The Eagles are terrible, man. Not to pour salt in the wound, but they are. So for the Bears, that would make Mitch Trubisky, and the same could be said about Patrick Mahomes, the 7th second-year quarterback to make it to a Super Bowl. For the most part, when they've gotten there, they've won. I mean, odds are if they get there, they're going to win. But it doesn't happen very often. I think there's something to say about a veteran presence. Also, when you have someone who's been a quarterback in the NFL for a certain number of years, chances are they're pretty good, or they wouldn't still be in the NFL. So I think odds favor a Drew Brees over a Mitch Trubisky, over a Jared Goff. I think Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger have an advantage over a Patrick Mahomes. I just tend to go with veterans when it comes to a playoff run and a championship. So there you have it. The date is November 26, 2018, and my Super Bowl prediction is the New Orleans Saints versus the New England Patriots. And just for shits and giggles, if that happens to be the matchup, I have the Saints coming out on top. Now let's get to some quick hits. There are a lot of fights coming up. As I mentioned at the top, I come from an MMA background. That's what I've been covering for the past 5 years. So it's only right I lead off with that. Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz. Terrible. Didn't want to watch it. Didn't want to watch Chuck Liddell when he fought Rashad Evans. It's just sad. Dana White literally begged the guy to retire, and he comes back and fights for Golden Boy MMA. Really embarrassing start to that promotion. Hope that Oscar De La Hoya can turn that one around because that sucked. Shout out to Tito, though. It was still a big win for Tito. Congratulations. November 30th, Rafael Dos Anjos versus Kamaru Usman. Excellent fight the very next day, December 1st. JDS and Mark Hunt both in very winnable matches. So it's Friday, Saturday. Now, the odds have them both as break even. So this is kind of a test to see if they still got anything left in the tank or if they're old and washed up. Either way, you get to see two of the best heavyweights of all time in action against some fresh faces. So definitely something to look forward to as a UFC fan. UFC 231 is going to be stacked, but we'll get into that more next week with a special guest. You have to wait to see who that is. Kemba Walker is sneaky, one of the best players in the NBA. I love to say it. At the time of recording this, granted, there's tons of games every single night, so I'm sure the stats will have skewed a little bit, but the leaders for points per game, number 1, James Harden, 2, Steph Curry, 3, LeBron James, and 4, a two-way tie between Kevin Durant and, yes, Kemba Walker. I love it. I'm in the same grade as him. We went to UConn the same exact time, same age. I got to see UConn win a national championship in 2011 as an undergrad. One of the greatest experiences ever. I love Kemba. He's one of my favorite players, maybe my favorite player in any sport. But he's short, and I didn't think his game would necessarily translate. I thought he might be a role player. I never saw him really becoming a star in the NBA, but that clearly is not the case. Whether he stays with Charlotte, whether he goes somewhere else, Kemba Walker will be a massive superstar, and I could not be happier. Shout out Kemba. College basketball, I will jump around the league, I promise. When it's warranted, I'll get into other things, but right now I got to show a little love to my alma mater. As I mentioned, graduated from UConn, same year as Kemba Walker. UConn has a whole new vibe this year. I don't know what it is. Well, I know what it is. Dan Hurley, amazing head coach, changed the entire culture. The team basically crumbled under Kevin Ollie. He won a national championship his first year, but let's face it, you basically had Shabazz Napier as a player coach. You had all of Calhoun's recruits, all his guys, his entire culture that he sort of breeded into these players. They won a national championship with that. Ever since then, Kevin Ollie has basically run this program into the ground. It was time for a change. We got Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley immediately changed the culture. Especially the past 2 years, we were playing like losers. Basically the same roster this year. We're playing like winners. We have a great amount of recruits coming in. Huge win against Syracuse in Madison Square Garden. We're already getting votes to be ranked. I just wanted to make a postseason. It's not guaranteed, but it seems like we will make March Madness this year, and I can't wait for it. UConn is on their way back. I'm calling it national championship. Not this year, but next year. We're making a run. Go Huskies. And now it's time for my Degenerate Lock of the Week. And you know what that sound means? That free YouTube DJ Scratch rewind sound effect can only mean that we are spiraling down into the degenerate world of online sports gambling, and I'm here to make you money. That's the difference between this podcast, the new format, and the old one. In this format, you are guaranteed to win money, and why wait till the weekend? Let's just start with a Thursday night game, a team that I know very well, the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan. I've been rooting for them forever, since as long as I can remember, which is to say, since, I mean, I guess I was rooting when I was little too, but I don't remember the Super Bowl days. My life as being a Cowboys fan, I get hated on like I'm a winner because we win tons of Super Bowls in the 90s. We won a bunch in the 70s as well. I was not alive in the 70s, and I didn't understand the complexities of the game of football when I was, 5, 6 years old. So guess what? I don't remember the Cowboys Super Bowls. All I remember is the Tony Romo era. I don't even want to talk about before that, Bledsoe. My career, my life as a Cowboys fan has been nothing but heartbreak, so let's just get that out of there. I'm a Cowboys fan. Full disclosure on that. They're on a hot streak. They won 3 in a row. Clearly not as many as the Saints, who have won 10 in a row. One of the best teams in football. As you heard earlier in the episode, I think they are the best team in football. And they're coming to Dallas and giving up 8 points. The spread right now is 8. By the way, I checked earlier this morning. It was 7, then it was 7.5. Now it's 8. So obviously there's a lot of money coming in on the Saints. The over-under right now is set at 53. For my lock of the week, I'm going to suggest a parlay. Take the Cowboys. Take the under. Right now at minus 120 odds, you can get the Cowboys plus 14. You get the under at 59. That's your bet. That's what you take. People don't realize, first of all, the Saints have a very underrated defense. People talk about their offense. If you look at the points scored against them throughout the season, not a whole lot. 256. That's just over 23 points per game. The Cowboys are sitting at 234. That's under 20 points per game. People sleep on both of these defenses. I think they're both going to be able to slow each other down. I think the Cowboys will be able to run out a lot of clock, focusing on Zeke and that rushing offense. Dak is another guy, when he does throw it, he's usually doing those checkdowns, so it really chews up the clock. That's one of the reasons why the Cowboys games have been so low scoring. And I think this defense, first of all, getting to Drew Brees, and the Cowboys secondary, including Van Der Esch, who's a real front runner for the defensive rookie of the year, I think they'll be able to slow down the Saints offense. Now, do I think that the Saints are going to win? Yes. Do I think they're going to win by 14? No. The Cowboys are feeling themselves right now. I have no illusion about them being better than the Saints. I know the Saints are 10-1. I don't think that the win streak is snapped this Thursday, but it's worth keeping in mind that the Cowboys are at home, and they're coming off a week's rest. They played last Thursday. The Saints just played on Sunday. That matters, particularly on defense. So I do think the Cowboys will have some success on a worn-out Saints defense. Tease the Cowboys and the under. Put it in the books. That is your degenerate lock of the week. And finally, enough sports talk. Let's get into Outside the Bubble. This week, as the theme of this episode has been the end of November, we're heading into December, and that means it's the holiday season. I know David St. Martin loves Christmas music. He loves the holidays. He loves joy and happiness and overall cheery camaraderie. He loves all that stuff, and so do I. So I want to recommend my favorite Christmas movies. These have not changed in years. I'm not going to shock you. These aren't brand new movies. None of this is going to be really exciting, except for the fact that it is, because there's something about the familiarity of these classic Christmas movies that really, I don't know, get you excited for the holidays. These are the two must-watch movies that I watch every single holiday season. At the beginning, maybe I watch them a couple times throughout. It gets me excited for it. Number one, the GOAT, the best Christmas movie out there, Home Alone. Now, I don't want to talk about the second one. Actually, I didn't even realize this until last year or a couple of years ago. Home Alone 2 is the same exact thing. They redo the whole plot. The entire thing it's like a carbon copy of the first one, and they just set it in New York instead of Chicago. It's stupid. But Home Alone 1 is the GOAT. Everything about it, the Christmas music, there's so many iconic scenes. I mean, it's just wonderful. I bought it a while ago because I don't think it's on any of the streaming services. That might have been dumb, but hey, I watch it every year, so I've got my money's worth already. Now, I know what you're thinking. The other sort of classic route you can go is these claymation movies, right? You have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You have The Year Without a Santa Claus. All sorts of classics to choose from. For me, the one must-watch every year is Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I mean, it's the best one. I love the whole origin story aspect of it. They kind of explain all the mythology behind Christmas. How did Santa meet the elves? Why does he go down the chimney? Why does he wear a red suit? How did he meet Mrs. Claus? They get into all that, and I love it. That's the number one claymation movie. And while we're on it, just because I'm going through my traditions here, I love watching repeats of old television Christmas specials. And for me, the GOAT TV show, the one that's the best, well, first of all, one of my favorites anyway, but especially around the holidays, there's special episodes, Halloween, Christmas. You can't beat Community. Now, Community, I'm so loyal to that whole cast. Donald Glover, Gillian Jacobs, Allison Brie, freaking John Oliver was on it. The whole cast is killing it. But those Christmas specials, first of all, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, that was a season 2 special. The whole thing's done in claymation. And it had this dark sort of undertone to it, which is kind of Community's sweet spot. When they can sort of balance out the heavy, really heavy, emotional, dark stuff and put that into this silly, zany kind of comedy, that is Community at its best. And Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas was absolutely that. And then regional holiday music, the one that they kind of make fun of Glee. The whole thing's a musical. That one's hilarious as well. So throw that in the rotation. If you haven't watched Community, just watch Community. The season 2 two-part finale, the paintball episode, the second paintball episode. Obviously, the first one was in season 1. But that's some of the best television you could possibly watch. If you haven't watched Community, treat yourself. It's on Hulu. But there you go. Home Alone, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and then the Community Christmas specials. Those are my recommendations. That was Outside the Bubble, and this has been the Disorderly Sports Report podcast. I hope you guys like the new format. I think it's got potential. Take care, guys. I'll see you next week. Peace.